Welcome back to Organize with Grace podcast. Do you feel like you're always struggling to get it together? Do you feel like you're burning the candle at both ends? Feeling completely disorganized in your home and life, that it's starting to affect you mentally and emotionally? Well, you've come to the right place if you need encouragement, easy and simple organization tips, or you just want to know that you're not alone in this season of life. Hi, I'm Grace Ramon, your fellow working mom and professional organizer. I believe in you, friend. You can get it together. Now let's get organized. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I have dared to tell you about my own mental health struggles. And for those of you who took the time to listen, um, who are taking the time to listen, thank you. It's not an easy topic to address. It's not an easy topic to have a conversation around, but I felt like it's so important to do so. And while I'm not a therapist, I am a professional organizer. I am faced with the emotions that come when it's time to take a look at a client's possessions, and there are items that they are thinking about letting go of or have a hard time letting go of. So as far as emotions are concerned, they are there, they exist, and I will not um I will not deny them. I will address them. And with this episode, we're going to be talking about grief. And grief is gets really overwhelming. It's an overwhelming emotion for a lot of people, and grief has different um degrees, different we vary in what we grieve about. But with this episode, I talked with professional organizer Jenn Dickel, and she will shed some light into what happens when clients come to her and they feel overwhelmed with all the things, and come to find out they are going through a season in their lives where they are grieving something or grieving because of a loss of someone. And for a while now, I have been talking with you here and there about the benefits of hiring a professional organizer, especially when you're feeling frustrated and overwhelmed with all the things and you don't know where to begin. And most times you may be able to DIY your way to becoming more organized in your home and in your life, and DIY your way into decluttering by watching a YouTube video or watching Marie Kondo on Netflix, or reading a blog about organizing. But there are times that life can feel so overwhelming, especially when you are going through a grieving process, that you just need someone to help. And in this episode, I want to show you that these professionals exist. I exist, and so does Jenn Dickel. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Jenn. Hi there, Grace here with Organize with Grace. And I have a special guest for you, and I'm so excited to have her here. Her name is Jenn Dickel, and she is the founder of Seasonal Navigation Organizing. And she's here to talk with us about what she does and what she can help you with. And it's something that a lot of us don't really care to talk about, or especially when we experience it, it's really tough, and that is grief. And so before we go on, I want to just say hi to Jenn. She's right here in front of me. Hi, Jenn. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Grace. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And I know it's going to sound a little odd that I'm excited to be here to talk about sad things. Um,
Right.
but um, it's really about finding the beauty in our ugly.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what I equate grief with. And it
Hmm.
really, there are a lot of beautiful things that can come out of grief. And I think the more people recognize that, they won't run from it as much.
Yeah.
And the more we normalize these type of conversations and the talking of grief and living through it, the better we will all be. And I say this, from having I've lost my entire family. So experiencing
Hmm.
it on many different levels with many different family members. And it's, you really do learn what you value
Yeah.
and what you truly love by going through some of the darkest moments of your life.
Wow. Wow. And yeah, it's very heavy, but yet it's a human experience. And so Jen, how did your organizing business come about? And I loved reading about it on your website, but I'd love for you to tell us more about how this seasonal navigation organizing was born.
So I would love to tell you. I mean, I've been organized, and I've
Hmm.
always loved to organize things. I grew up in a rather chaotic environment, so being able to function well within chaos, I learned how to do that. I think that's what makes organizing so interesting too, because we all know that when you organize, you got to pull everything out. Everything gets super chaotic, and then you got to put
Right.
it back together.
Right.
And that's very similar to our healing processes too. And what we're doing emotionally and what we do physically, we do the same types of things. But when I started my business and I was really thinking about the name on what to call it, I went back to the Bible in Ecclesiastes 3:1. There's a time and a season for everything under heaven. And if you go through the rest of those scriptures, I mean,
Right.
there is a time and a place for everything. And I was like, and I remember praying about it, and I was like, that's it. Now it's long, the name is long, and it's not the best for placement, because it's an S versus an A. And when you look at marketing stuff, and
Yeah.
and but for me it was more about the purpose.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
even the purpose behind it. We all need to navigate new seasons. We never stay stagnant. We are constantly living new experiences, and that comes out in the seasons of our life. And
Right.
when we have new jobs, when we move, when we get married, if God forbid we have to get divorced, or when you have children, all of those are new seasons of life where we have new experiences and we have to adapt and into new ways of living.
Wow. Yeah, so true, so true. And before we pressed record, Jen and I were talking about just that and how with grief it's it's organic where we don't I'm going to take her words, we don't realize that we're going through it until we're going through it. And isn't that right, Jen?
It truly, when we're talking about, like, obviously everyone equates grief with death.
Yes.
But we grieved during COVID, whether we realize it or not. We grieved the fact that we couldn't leave the house. We grieved the fact that everyone was working from the kitchen table and our lives
So
were
true.
different. Whether
Yep.
we realized how we were functioning was a level of grief when we changed jobs,
Hmm.
regardless of, if we lost our job, um, if we decided to leave that job. There are levels and things we grieve because depending on how long you've been there, you loved the people you worked with, the routine of it, and all of that changes when you leave and try something new. So
Yeah.
there are aspects of grief in just about everything we do that I don't think enough people recognize.
Right.
Either friendships, we've all lost a friend that we really wanted to keep in our lives, and for whatever reason, there's a grieving to losing that too.
Yeah.
And it's been really amazing to recognize all the different areas that grief actually comes up in day to day that we don't normally say, I'm grieving today. That's a grief thing. Like,
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I
And
think
and with oh, go ahead.
I think with death, though, it's like we recognize that's definitely a grief
Hmm.
area. But
Hmm.
all the other places, I don't think we recognize that the grief in that, like I had said before.
Yeah, yeah. And with the grief, with this experience, is a sense of feeling out of control, right? In so
Oh,
many
totally.
ways. And with that feeling of out of being out of control, there's also that feeling of disorganization, and you just can't seem to like proverbially catch up. You know, I saw a post from someone that says if catching up worked, you would be caught up by now.
It's so true. So, so true.
So yeah, I thought about that. I'm like, oh yeah, I keep saying that, and I'm like, I'm not catching up. But anyway, that I thought that was funny. But we all say it. I mean, I know I do. I've got some catching up to do, and it's just kind of like a natural thing that we do. But in grief and in such a big event, you know, that is in many ways traumatic, we do feel disorganized, and that's where someone like Jenn comes in, and I just love this focus of your services. Tell us how what is it like to go through or with you grief organizing as opposed to any other type of organizing, like, you know, your home or paper or moving things like that. What is it, what is and it's already unique as it is, like the name of it, grief organizing. So can you tell us more about that?
So most of the people who come to me don't even say that they're grieving or anything of that nature, but through working with them,
Hmm.
we come across things that they haven't addressed. And a lot of times figuring out what that's associated with. Sometimes it is the loss of a spouse, or it is the loss of a job,
Hmm.
or something else.
Hmm.
We left the home of our dreams and we had to move here. Like those, and what we're, the value we're placing on our things and the amount of emotion that's involved in them.
Wow.
I
Yep.
don't think there's a lot of recognition about that either. And until you start to organize and someone questions you, you know, what does this mean to you? Why are you finding value in it? What kind of purpose does this serve in your life? And so I say it comes a little more organically than people would think. And I can tell you, based on almost all of my clientele, not none of them came to me going, you know what, I got grief, we need to handle it.
Yeah. Right.
Um, they said, I have an issue with getting organized and I
Hmm.
need help. I've been avoiding it, or I moved, I got divorced, and I need to handle some things that I've just, put on the back burner. And
Right.
that's how it typically starts. And then as we
Ah.
go through it, and I don't ask everybody, what's your traumatic history? Can you please outline that?
Right.
That's not, it comes out more in conversation as you're working.
That's
And
wonderful.
as you're doing things together and pulling things out, oh, that was from my last house. Oh, that was from my ex husband. Oh, that was from the day we got married. All of these different events that happen in our life and that are significant. And then sometimes you find stuff that it was like, oh, I totally didn't expect that, like loss of a child. Not enough people talk about that because I know how
Wow.
awful and traumatic that is.
So
Um,
true. Yeah.
And when you find things associated with that, they're like, oh, I had no idea I put that there.
Hmm.
So, regardless of what event we're tying that to, that's really what it awakens some of that. And it becomes so sometimes some of our appointments end up being like processing some of those emotions
Hmm.
or being able to table it and still be productive even
Right.
though you're feeling crappy. Because I mean, most of us hit a wall, air quote, and we're just like, whatever. Okay, I'm done. It's
I'm
Netflix
done.
and the sofa time.
Yeah,
When you
mentally
hit,
you're just no.
yeah, when you hit the emotional
Emotion
wall.
and emotionally, yeah.
But when
Hmm.
someone's with you and they say, well, do you need a few minutes?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Let's get some sunshine. Do you want me to go with you or do you want to be by yourself? And someone to help you, we'll say refocus. And
Yeah.
that's really what I do more is I do a refocus. I get you in we work in a safe place in your house. And if sitting on your bed helps you process your closet and makes you feel safe, because I mean, someone's touching your stuff, like,
That's
and then
number
they're
1.
asking,
Yeah, yeah.
you're going through where I'm asking you questions, and sometimes it can be uncomfortable.
Of
And then you
course.
come up against feelings you didn't think you had, or an outfit. I had a client who we were going through her closet, and no big deal. She's like, "Hey, let's go through my closet." And then we come across clothes from when she was married. And she's like, "I've been divorced 10 years. Why am I not getting rid of this?"
Wow.
And, so we kind of talk through that a little bit more. And there's some more questions involved into, what does this represent for you? Is it a good memory? Is it a bad memory? Like, and, dig a little deeper. Now, we don't do that with every single item, but, if
Mhm.
we hit what I call a wall for a little bit, then, you can set it down and we'll get to it later. Or do you want to explore the reason? So everyone's got an option.
Yeah, yeah, I like what you said about going through the process, but at the same time being productive. Like, what a balance that is for you as a professional organizer. And I mean, what is that like? Is that something that is a natural skill per se that you already have, or have you had to get some training? Because sometimes I feel like we feel like a counselor almost, right? As we're going through that. Like, how do you balance that with your clients?
I don't think I do. I mean, let me be really honest. I
Yeah, yeah.
don't. Whatever, for me, it's about what happens in the moment, and
Nice.
providing the best guidance possible in the moment. And sometimes guidance is quiet. It's like, if
Wow.
you need a few moments, I'm going to go over here and take care of this and get this ready for you, and you do what you need to over here. You know, sometimes it'll be cry, sometimes they just need to step away, and sometimes it's, I just need a few minutes to process and sit here. It just depends on whatever the client needs, and I kind of just go with the flow with that. I had a
Nice.
client a few weeks ago, and everything just got overwhelmed. She moved, she's been having health issues, she's in the middle of a divorce, like all major life events kind of
Wow.
like crashing at one time.
Mhm.
And the goal of trying to get organized and keep it together. And
Right.
she just broke down. And, but allowing the space and time, I asked her, I said, would you like me to stay with you? Is it okay? And she said, yes. And then she just proceeded to go, like, all of the things came out.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
gave it a few minutes and allowed, whatever time was necessary for that. And she's like, "I can't believe telling you all of this." And I'm like, it's you're obviously needing an outlet. And yes, we can process through that. And I do emphasize that I am not a psychiatrist. I'm here to help you with your physical things.
Yeah.
I am not
Right.
equipped to help you with all of your emotional things.
Right. Right.
And I'm very clear about that. But can I listen? Can I be kind? And yes, I can do all of those things. Very
Yeah.
equipped for that.
And Jen is oh so kind. She is. And so yeah, wow. That's amazing, Jen. And with the productivity side, like typically, I mean, I know that it all depends on, the space that you're working with, or and it all depends on the items that they have. Like, how long does your service last for the person who is, experiencing this? And, is it um is does it depend on, what they're going through and the things that they want you to, get organized with, with their process?
So in the initial assessment, I talk about what they want to get done and what
Mhm.
their goals are for this. And I
Okay.
base the packages that I would pitch to them and say, on those goals.
Got it.
The grief aspect doesn't typically come up
Until right.
until you're actually in sessions. And most of my sessions, I've learned, uh, for most people, because I mostly do multi sessions. I don't do a lot of single sessions with people. I mean, because if you really want to make lasting change, it's multiple sessions. Most
Yeah.
people don't. If you're reaching out for help, you typically, it's not a freshen up. Like
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
have it all
Right.
organized. You need a new system. Like it's gotten chaos and you aren't really able to focus on providing, I'll call it the structure to
Hmm.
get back to being organized. So you need that structure again and then you'll maintain it. So that's kind of typically the situations
Nice.
I come up against. And it's multiple sessions. So I would say 2 to 3 sessions. That's probably the shortest for me. And but once you, I would say the third session is the sweet spot.
Hmm.
People feel more comfortable. Um, you've been in their underwear drawer, like
Right.
so you've been in intimate places in the house, whether it be a
Yeah.
pantry or seeing what people are equating to as the worst of their life. And
Yeah.
it's just some stuff, and we're going to put the stuff over here, and we're going to donate a little stuff, and we're going to keep a little stuff, and we're going to put it away and set you up with a new system. Like that's how I see it. I don't see
Nice.
this as a representation of your entire life, because your pantry's out of order or you have more clothes that fit in your closet. Like that's, but to some people, I mean, that's the other side of it. That's what they're seeing. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
seeing that really beautiful goal you want to get to. And I'm thinking,
Ye-
these are the steps to get there. How am I going to help you get there?
That's awesome because the reason why I ask is because oftentimes I also speak with people that potential customers that do feel that in addition to whatever transitions that they're going to, they feel embarrassed or they feel ashamed about their space. And so for someone like you to just simply come and like literally, I mean, hold their hand or give them that structure of this is the goal and this is what, this is the goal that you would like, and I will come alongside you and try to accomplish that goal, like with you. So I like how you explained that.
Thank you. It's,
Yeah.
I will say, and in I call it the redirect or refocus.
Redirect. Hmm.
If you were to hit an area that's just too much for you for that day, I would say, okay, and I know your end goal. I would say, okay, we're going to set this aside. We are going to come back to it, but we're going to set this aside for now, but we're going to move over here and refocus on this over here and still get something accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that circle back really makes a difference and going back to the hard place. Because sometimes, anytime there's grief is kind of like an ocean.
Mm.
I also do like to equate it like a wiffle ball bat into the face occasionally. But
Ah.
the kinder way is more like water,
Yes.
and the tides come in and the tides go out, and your
Yeah.
emotions will do the same. So sometimes just walking away long enough gives you enough mental recharge to go back and focus on whatever that item is and move to another level. But when we're doing it on our own, it's not as easy, one, to recognize it, and two, to be disciplined enough to come back to it.
Right. And speaking of doing it on our own, my audience, working moms, I mean, they are just I mean, not that anyone is less DIY, but I think a lot of us women in general, I think we are just like total DIYers. I can do it myself. And, but when we do hit a time of grief, a time of like an event, like you said earlier, like a loss of a job, I mean, what would you say to that person who is just feeling that overwhelm, who doesn't yet know a Jen, but hey, we're bringing you out here, that there are people like you that that can come and help. But for someone who is just listening, who is going through something like this, what would you give as a advice or a tip or just encouragement for her?
The best thing I can say with that is it's okay to ask for help. You
Yeah.
don't have to do it alone. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Mm,
And
good.
sometimes some of our sometimes there are times in our lives where we don't have to have it all together and we don't have to have it figured out, and it's
Hmm.
okay. I
Yeah.
know that that's kind of counterproductive to what society says to us and to, the world we may have built ourselves. I know it's been challenging for me, but it's okay to ask for help,
Yeah.
and there is no shame in it. Now be choosy about who you ask for help with. Not
Sure.
everyone's not everyone's a
Yeah.
good helpmate. And sometimes it is a stranger. You want someone who's not invested in your surroundings, say like a family member or something like that. And a lot of times our family members and friends aren't as patient with us
Right.
and aren't as patient, but also get being patient and tough love at the same time. There's a fine balance to that. And it's I don't want to say it's really challenging, but my number one thing, it's okay to ask for help. It's
Yeah.
okay to need help. It's okay to ask for help and not be ashamed of it. It's not, we all have times where it gets it spins out of control, as I like to refer to it. And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know
I
where we're
don't even
going
know
from
which
here.
end
I
which
don't
end is
know.
up.
Yeah. But that it's okay.
Right.
And knowing that there are people out there who are equipped and gifted to help you through that process.
So, Jen, after your clients have worked with you, what is the common what is the common result? What is the common thing that happens with your clients? After you've um, provided your organizing services to them, you've got their things decluttered and organized. Um, what are they saying as far as like what they're is there a sense of transformation that occurs, or what happened, what are they telling you afterwards?
So, some clients, it is a huge sense of relief. I
Mhm.
had one client say it's like a boulder's been lifted off of my chest.
Wow.
And, it depends on the size of the project. And I couldn't have done it without you, is another phrase that's used often. And I
Hmm.
also couldn't have done it as quickly.
Yeah.
So depending on, what they want to focus on, when we work with people who are gifted in a certain area, they're going to do it faster. Like
Right.
when you first started to learn how to podcast, your editing may take you an hour, but someone who's done it forever may only take them like 10 or 15 minutes. Like, so
Right.
that the more you do, the better you get at it. I mean, that happens with any activity.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of it transformation wise is it's really what they want it to be. And,
Mm.
depending on what their vision was when they started, it could be entirely different. But most of the time, it's a huge sense of relief and, oh,
Right.
this is fantastic. And I can't wait to just live in here or do whatever I need to now. A lot of times there's a block when it comes to our offices or the
Hmm.
spaces we're asking for help in. But
Yes.
once that weight, it is always equated to weight of carrying something, whether it be mentally or physically feeling, and that weight being removed. That's probably the
Wow.
biggest thing that's described to me. And, not having to worry about it anymore, or also not realizing how much it weighed you down to begin
Mm.
with.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't. We carry it around every day that, ooh, that room that we keep passing by that we know need work. And we just keep on closing the door week after week, month
Yeah.
after month. And to add to a life changing event, I mean, that makes it even more of a like a feeling of a tailspin, like you said, right? So, yeah, that's wonderful, Jen. That's wonderful. So, as we wrap up, can you tell my audience where they can find you? Where are you based? I know that you do a lot of in person, but there's also something cooking up, with a future upcoming podcast. So, tell us one, how can my audience best connect with you? And then two, let us know more about that upcoming podcast.
Okay. So my website is seasonalnavigation.com. Best place to start, has the most amount of information. I'm also on Instagram. I'm probably more active on Instagram than I am on Facebook, but I'm also on Facebook. I am cooking up a little podcast. I'd like to have more conversations. It's going to be called Grief Living, Rebuilding a Beautiful Life While Experiencing Grief. And that's my working title. It could potentially change, but I'm
No
hoping this
problem.
summer it's going to come out. And I want to talk, I mean, my goal with that is to normalize conversations around grief and to get other perspectives around it. And for us to be able to see beautiful things in ugly things. And that's,
Mm.
it doesn't always feel good to have to go through any of it, but there's that other side where the things you learned from it and the things that happened during it you didn't realize had such an impact. So that's my goal with the podcast, to really bring that out and start talking about it more. And we'll see where it goes.
So exciting, and at the same time exciting, to start something new, but also it's going to be a much needed podcast, maybe more than you realize. That's something that is, I know that it's hard to find support sometimes, in these in times of grief. So I think it's going to be a much needed podcast. So I'm really rooting for you on that, Jenn. So thank you so much though for being here at Organize with Grace. I really appreciate you and your time.
Well, thank you so much. I was really honored when you asked me to be on your podcast, and I was like, oh, that's going to be awesome. I can't wait to talk to Grace.
Yeah, and
So
Jenn and
thank
I
you.
right now, yeah, you're welcome. We are a part of a organizing group, and so this is how we've been getting to know each other. And so I'm excited to get to know you more, Jenn. Well, have a great day.
Same here. You too.
Hey, real quick, if you enjoyed today's episode, the best way to thank me is by leaving an iTunes review. If you're listening to me right now on your iPhone, simply scroll down, click write a review within the podcast, and voila, you'll get a chance to click 5 stars and type in how the podcast has helped you. You can also access iTunes on your computer if you're not an iPhone user by downloading the iTunes app. Also, I offer virtual organizing, and that means we get to hop on Zoom together wherever you are, and I can help you organize your space for a fraction of a price that you would spend hiring an in-person organizer. Contact me by email, hello@organizewithgrace.com, so you and I can get started. I offer a free 15-minute assessment to see if we're a good match to work together. So get on it, girl. Stop being stuck on your organizing journey. I'll help you walk forward so you can finish that organizing project that you've been procrastinating on. No judgment here. I've done it myself, but you know what I'm talking about, girl. All right. Can't wait to talk to you. Bye.